This edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by Opsgenie by Atlassian. With Opsgenie, your next incident doesn't stand a chance. And by Smile, the makers of world-class software like PDFpen for Mac, PDFpenPro for Mac, PDFpen for iPhone and iPad, PDFpen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, TextExpander for Mac, and TextExpander for iPhone and iPad. Learn more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I wanted to try to do a first weekend show with the new iPad, but the scheduling is a little bit tough, and trying to find people that are willing to talk about their experiences with the new iPad, if they bought one, a little bit challenging this time for some reason. But I decided this would be the perfect opportunity to connect with an old friend that we haven't talked to for a while, that goes back to the Mac Notable days, Mr. Dennis Sellers of Apple World Today. Dennis, it's great to see you.
It's good to be back. It's been too long, Chuck.
It's been way too long. So I think we're going to make this sort of a combination thing of, your first experiences with the new iPad, but also just a catch up on what you're up to and what you've been up to.
Okay. Well, I've been at Apple World Today, me and Steve Sandy running Apple World Today for about 3 years now. So it's going pretty well. We're not getting rich, but paying the bills and having a lot of fun. So that's good. Family life is good. So I guess Dennis is doing well. I can't complain.
Well, that's good. And I think it's appropriate to let everyone know that now you're a grandfather for the second time.
I am a grandfather for the second time. Gabriel Sellers was born about 5 weeks ago, and I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, Elizabeth. So they keep me entertained, particularly the 3-year-old. She's got to where she can, when I say she can talk, she talks nonstop, but she keeps me on my toes and very entertained, and I'm sure Gabriel will too. Give him a few months where he can get up and going.
I would guess so. Well, that's great. I'm so happy that that life is treating you well. And as far as you and Steve, well, we tolerate Steve.
Well, Steve and I are from the time we started working together, we've been surprisingly simpatico. We have so much in common that we were really surprised to find out the things that we had in common. Age-wise, marriage-wise, church-wise, everything. So it's really worked out well. And if he needs to take off for something, I can cover things. And if I need to take off for something, like playing with my granddaughter, he covers things. So it's really been a great relationship working with Steve.
Oh, that's great. Well, I love to pick on him, but he's a top-notch guy, and I'm so glad that you two are making Apple World Today work, because it's one of the main news sites now. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, I mean, some of them have closed down. It's a tough market to be in because, there are a lot of people involved in it. But, some of the longtime sites like Mac Addict is now, of course, they still have their print magazine, but I think their website is rolled into Tech News. They still have Mac Addict, Mac Life News online, but it's part of another website now. Mac NN is gone. So, some of the big ones have disappeared, over the past couple of years.
It's been an interesting transition, Dennis, and we'll delve into history just for a second here. But there was a time that the Mac News area was sort of its own thing. It was a bit of a subset of the tech web. And now, with Apple's popularity and Apple's successes, it seems like Apple has become a lot more mainstream. And ironically, that has made it a little bit tougher on Apple-centric sites to draw the audiences that they once did.
That's true. Well, of course, I started out with one of the first ones, so Mac Central, many, many years ago, which the late Stan Flack, a good friend of mine whom I miss dearly, started. One of the early sites that got to be very successful, and was later acquired by IDG, the parent company of Macworld Magazine. So I've been doing this for a long time. But yeah, you're right. When it first started out, the Mac-centric sites, sort of had it all to themselves because, there was we went through the period where a lot of the mainstream press thought Apple was doomed. So they didn't get a lot of coverage unless it was to talk about how doomed they were. And so those of us who worked for Mac sites had a pretty open door to cover the things we wanted to cover without a whole lot of competition, particularly in the web area. There was, just lots of magazines when I first started, a lot of print magazines, Macworld, Mac Life came along, Mac Home. Then there was the Mac Weekly, then Mac Tech, which is still around, and I still do some work for them, geared toward developers and that sort of thing. But, most of at least in the U.S., Macworld is the only, Mac Life is the only print magazine left.
Yeah.
It's an amazing change to me.
It really is. And sometimes it's that perspective that we all get lost a bit because we're so focused on the now. You look back and realize just how things have changed. I'm not prepared to say they're changed necessarily for the worse. They've just changed. Mm-hmm. And so, we all roll on.
Print magazines have had to go more feature stories and reviews because, you can't keep up with, you can't compete with the internet as far as the speed of getting the news out. When I first became an Apple fan and was using Apple products, particularly Macs, it was the magazines that came in the mail or that I bought on the, magazine racks. That's where I got most of my news in the beginning. But now, if something happens, it's, covered by lots of websites in a matter of minutes. So the print magazines have had to take a different tack to, find a new niche for themselves.
I didn't anticipate quite going here, Dennis, but let's do it for the heck of it. Because you were a print magazine. Then you moved over and you worked with various websites. Is it really a lot different other than just the speed of things to write for a website versus the way you used to for the magazines?
No, I guess the biggest difference is, and before I got into the Mac journalism or the tech journalism world, I was a weekly newspaper editor. But of course, the thing is, you write something. If something happens, people want the news up very quickly, and if you get it up quickly, it doesn't get polished as much as it might in a print magazine, where you would write it and then maybe go back and proofread it 2 or 3 times. So you can get it quicker. The stories may not necessarily be, and I'm talking about myself personally here, may not be as polished as they were when I was doing things for print magazines. On the other hand, if you held a story back and polished it 2 or 3 times and got it up, then people were like, well, everybody else had this up, and it's why did it take you an hour to get it up instead of 15 minutes? So it's a blessing and a curse, but, most readers understand that, if you're getting something trying to get the news in front of them quickly, if there's a typo in it, most people understand. There's a few that don't, that like to point out the mistakes, but most people understand. But it's just simply the speed and the fact you can go back and polish things to your heart's content, I think, is the biggest change for me.
Yeah. And again, it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just depending on where your values lie. It's just the way it is. So you got it in today's world. You have to keep up, no question.
Yeah. And things change so quickly.
Well, speaking of keeping up, you have acquired a new iPad, and I was really interested to find out what your thoughts are about it and why you decided at this point in time to do an upgrade.
Well, let's do the last question first because it's the easiest, simply because I guess the good thing is I've been doing this long enough. When Apple announces a new product, all the companies that make cases and peripherals and everything ask me if I'll review their products. Reviews are good for traffic at the website and show that, we have our hand in a lot of things. The downside is Apple doesn't give me any free review units, so I have to buy them myself. But I have some contacts I've developed over the years that are usually happy to buy last year or the year before's product to help me pay for the new one. So that's the reason I upgrade, so I can keep we can do relevant reviews and, make our potential advertisers or just friends of mine in different companies like 12 South and Moshi and all the companies that make, accessories for new Apple products. So it makes them happy. It makes me happy to do, have lots of review products to do. And then it just keeps the site sort of current and updated. That's why I upgrade regularly.
So do you consider your iPad a productivity tool, or is it a consumption tool, or is it just something that you use for whatever?
It's a little bit of every. I probably use it more for consumption. If I didn't require using so many programs at the same time, it could be a laptop replacement. And I think it could be for a lot of people. I still find that, the hardware is great. The screen's beautiful. The Apple Pencil is good. I like the Smart Keyboard Folio, the Apple apps that come with it, like Pages, which I do my word processing in. All those are good. They work well and everything. But when it comes to multitasking and managing lots of files and just having to have several apps open at the same time, maybe I'm just set in my ways, but I find it just so much easier to do that on a Mac than on an iPad. For instance, like in my daily work, I usually have Safari open, Pages, my calendar, mail, Slack, which Steve and I use to communicate, talk during the day. So I have at least those 5 applications open. iTunes, if I'm wanting to play music while I'm working, and it's just so much easier to jump from one to the other, on a Mac with a bigger screen than it is even on the 13-inch of the iPad. So I like the iPad Pro. I really like it. I can do productivity work on it if I'm making a weekend trip to West Tennessee to visit my brothers or sister and want to check my email or write a story. That's great for that. But even if I can plug it into a bigger monitor, and I know you can with the new iPad Pro, I still find that iOS, even with version 12, is still a little too limiting for me. That I wouldn't want to use it 8 hours a day running the website at this point in time.
I'm glad you described the apps you keep open and sort of how you're doing it. 2 things to me it reveals. First of all, the larger screen still is necessary for multi-app productivity. I love the app switching and I love all the things that are built into iOS. Almost there, not quite, because I work very similar to the way you do. But I think I also heard that it is the multi-app thing that really, really does it, that you don't just sit down or you don't go to a coffee shop or whatever, sit down and just write. You're doing so many things, not just writing, but also doing things with the writing to post it, to manage the website and all that you need that other environment.
And, if you're a person that, like my daughter, now she has an older MacBook. And so I don't know if she'd want to switch to an iPad Pro because she's gotten used to working on her MacBook. But from a practical standpoint, she could probably take an iPad Pro and do all of her things just fine because she's usually in one app at a time. She's not like Dad, okay, I'm writing this story. Let me look over here and see what's happening online. Let me check my calendar and see if I got any appointments. Go to Pixelmator Pro and edit an image to go along with the story I'm working on. So I'm just all over the place where she and my wife tend to be in, their word processing or they're on Facebook or they're looking up things online. They tend to focus on one app at a time. So for folks like that, I think it could very easily be, your main computer because they don't need a 27-inch screen or a 21-inch screen to jump from one thing to another. But for folks like me and you, I still think the Mac is a better choice for hours of productivity work.
Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Opsgenie by Atlassian. Uptime is good, downtime is bad. And you know there are going to be incidents. That's just how it works. So how do you reduce downtime for your customers? Opsgenie by Atlassian is how. Opsgenie helps you and your team get alerts immediately when something goes wrong. But it's a huge waste of time and effort for everyone to get those alerts, especially if they happen to be on a holiday or at 3 a.m. That's why Opsgenie allows for deep flexibility in how and when alerts are deployed, with a smart combination of scheduling and escalation paths. The right people get notified at the right time, and everyone else gets their beauty sleep. But you already have all sorts of apps that do all sorts of things for you. That's why Opsgenie supports over 200 integrations with apps like Jira, Amazon CloudWatch, Datadog, New Relic, and more, so that implementing it in your workflow is simple. I told you about how I felt when a website I was trying to access was down for 30 minutes. How do you feel when that happens to you? Now, imagine how your customers feel. That's a feeling you don't want them to have, right? That's why you need to visit Opsgenie at opsgenie.com right now and sign up for a free account. No, not a trial account, a free account. Then add up to 5 members of your team, also for free, and find out what Opsgenie can do for you. Opsgenie from Atlassian. Your next incident doesn't stand a chance. Thanks to Opsgenie for supporting this edition of MacVoices. Okay, with all that, now we have an idea of how you work. How is this iPad compared to what you were using previously? Have you noticed any big differences in it as in the way you use it?
Well, the Apple Pencil is the Apple Pencil 2 is much more flexible, has much more power. You can double click, and I think it was iFixit that in their breakdown of the new iPad, I think they took apart an Apple Pencil 2 and they said it had a capacitive design all the way around. So they think it may have some hidden potential to do things that we don't know about yet. So, I mean, could the Apple Pencil 2, double click and do things like I use a mouse to do now? That would be intriguing if it could. I use it to play around and draw a little bit. Nothing serious, nothing for the website necessarily. And the new pencil is much better for that because you can double tap it and change the size of your brush and everything. So I do like that. And I guess one of the surprising things is that even though the 12.9-inch iPad that I just got is screen size is the same. Same screen size as the 2017 model. Apple said it was 25% smaller in volume, and I was a little bit, thought, I don't know about that. But once I got it, I look at it and I think, at first I thought they sent me the wrong one. I thought, no, this is the 11-inch one. But then when I got it out and looked at it, they have, with all the changes they've made, they have got that 12.9-inch screen and a more powerful processor and an even smaller body. So that's quite an impressive achievement.
Okay, so a couple things there. The Apple Pencil comments, I did not. I guess I missed that on the iFixit teardown. That's really interesting. But this is the first time that I haven't really looked at the offering of iPads and said, okay, that's the one I want. Mm-hmm. I really feel the need to go to a store, put both in my hands, and see which one I think will be the most useful for me. And that's been a little bit different for me because usually it's just been the bigger one has always been obviously the better. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not quite so sure.
And again, I don't know like I say, I know some people that had much preferred in 2017, the 10.5, and they liked it. They liked it small, even for doing word processing and that sort of thing, just because it was so compact. But the new 12.9-inch one is so, at 75% the size as last year's model. I mean, it's compact enough that, you can carry it pretty much anywhere and, attach the keyboard and have the pencil and just do all sorts of things. So it's a truly amazing tablet, and it's an okay laptop for me, I can make it work as a laptop for a while, but for some people, it would probably be an excellent laptop replacement. And, and of course, for better or for worse, Apple has invited that comparison with at their, event a couple of weeks ago where they were comparing iPad sales that, sold, I think they said outsold 92% of all laptops last year. So if you're going to say that, then you're basically begging people to review it as a laptop replacement, or at least look at that possibility.
How did you feel about the USB-C? The change. I mean, I know you've only had it for a few days, but do you anticipate that being a big difference, big thing in the way you use the iPad?
No, not in the way that I use it, but I mean, you will have to. I mean, there are. I made a list. I don't have it here in front of me, but there, depending on what your needs are, you may have to have some sort of adapter that USB-C to Lightning or something, depending on exactly which items you have and everything. But so it hadn't been a problem for me, but it could be for some people. So I would say anybody that's listening and that's considering buying one of the new iPad Pros should, look at what they want to connect to it and just double check and see, what kind of adapters they might need, because you're talking about probably $9-10 for every adapter that you need, and the new iPad Pros aren't inexpensive to start with. So that'd be a few more nickels and dimes you'd have to add to the overall cost. So everyone should check that out carefully.
Yeah, I feel a little bit better, I guess, about this round of changes and the dongles you'll need, simply because most of those dongles will now function with your other Macs, most likely. And so and obviously some may not be needed for certain other devices, but I like the idea of them standardizing on something like this. And it's a little bit more of an industry standard, not necessarily an Apple standard. And that helps too. Although it does concern me a little bit, since this is a charging port, that people are just going to stick anything in there and fry their iPads. But I guess that's the nature of having an open standard like that.
Mm-hmm. They just have to be careful. But just be careful out there when you're using it, and make sure you got the right stuff and the right adapters if you do need adapters.
This edition of Mac Voices is supported by Smile at smilesoftware.com, the makers of world-class software. PDFpen and PDFpenPro from Smile are the tools I rely on to create, edit, and modify PDF documents. Everyone from the Fortune 100 corporations down to your kid's soccer club use PDFs. And that's exactly why you need PDFpen. PDFpen lets you take those PDFs and correct mistakes, make notes, and add audio notes to them. You can do something as simple as combining two PDFs into one, or as sophisticated as running optical character recognition to turn them into editable text, ready for copying into a different document or program. You can watermark your PDFs, and not just stamp a graphic or watermark on them, but create something custom, an image or text block that can be made semi-transparent and can be made to appear behind the text. Headers and footers used to be just for word processing documents, but PDFpen lets you create either or both for your PDFs, so you can add page numbers and decide what the range of pages the numbers appear on. Line art and logos can be selected, moved, and modified to your liking, or eliminated altogether. Images can be resized as you wish. And of course, if you need to redact a word or block of text, you can do so totally and securely, without having to worry that someone might get to that information. Perhaps best of all, PDFpen and PDFpenPro just keep getting better. New capabilities are added regularly to make sure that you have all the control of your PDFs that you want. PDFpen and PDFpenPro are available directly from Smile at smilesoftware.com. Download demo versions today and find out just what you can do with your PDFs that you didn't think was possible. And while you're there, check out all the other great Smile productivity apps, like TextExpander for Mac, TextExpander for iPhone and iPad, PDFpen for iPhone and iPad, and PDFpen Scan plus OCR. All from Smile at smilesoftware.com, the makers of world-class software. Thanks to Smile for their support of Mac Voices. So you got a keyboard with this?
Yes, I got because obviously with what I do, which is I do a lot of things, but I'll do a lot of writing, and I do want to be able to like I say, over the weekend to whip it out and answer emails or write a quick article if I need to. So I got the Smart Keyboard Folio. I think that's what they call the new keypad or the new keyboard that they make for it.
And how's the feel for that, Dennis? I mean, I know I've got the one for the previous generation, and it's an okay keyboard. It's not great, but I know the keyboards are such a personal choice too. But I have no trouble doing any serious work on it. How about this new one?
I mean, the big difference is, and I don't know if unlike the old one where it just snapped on the bottom, this one routes all the way around it. So it's a case and a keyboard. So that's pretty nice. As far as the keyboard itself and the keys on it, if you like the previous one, you'll like this one. If you hated the previous one, you're not going to like this one because the tactile feel of the keys to me are pretty much exactly the same. So as far as the keyboard aspect of the Folio, I find that the typing experience to be just like its predecessor.
Okay, so how about the other big change? And that is for an iPad, Face ID.
Well, of course, I've had it on, I had an iPhone 10 and I'd gotten used to it. So, it wasn't a big change for me. I mean, when I first got it, I was trying to reach for the home button, to log in. But now it's just on my iPhone. I'm used to just picking it up and staring at it and it launching into, opening up the screen and everything. So, to me, it was just a natural progression from using my iPhone. If you've not been using Face ID, it's going to take a little while a very little while to get used to it. But I like it. I find it very convenient.
Yeah. Were you one of those guys, Dennis, that more into loss of the home button, even on the iPhones, or did you take to the Face ID right away?
I took to it right away. I mean, to me, it wasn't that major a change. It didn't take me a long time to get used to it, but I think there was a member of my family that they didn't like it. They missed the Touch ID. It did take them a while when they got a new iPhone to get used to using Face ID, but to me, it wasn't a hard transition.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I know that there's something to be said for being able to stick your hand in your pocket. Your thumb sort of automatically went to that home button, and it was unlocked by the time you had it up and were using it.
Mm-hmm.
But the Face ID was so good. I was shocked how good it was.
Mm-hmm.
That, if as long as I raised it up and looked at it, which I would have probably done anyway, because there really was nothing else you could do on the phone unless you looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
I found I liked it. And of course, the simple fact is it's more secure. No question about that.
Well, and I'm like you, I'm surprised at how effectively it worked. I mean, of course, I did the Face ID, but depending on what I was doing, I might have a baseball cap on or sunglasses on with my iPhone or with the new iPad, it knows who I am, even if I got different glasses on or got a cap on or, haven't shaved or whatever. So it's very clever. It works well.
When you go back and look at both of those moves, the home button Touch ID and the face recognition, I mean, those were really bet the farm kind of moves because there was no backup. It's not like they included the home button and Face ID in one device. They really moved from one to the other, and it worked. And I still look back and think, wow, what if it hadn't?
Mm-hmm.
But it did, and it just reinforced that belief that Apple seems to be able to do anything they set their mind to and do it really well.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of the introduction of the first iMac, with some of the changes, some of the things that didn't have everybody, a lot of people are like, well, this will never work. It doesn't have, fill in the blank of the port that Apple removed from it and just replaced everything with USB. So that was a big gamble on Apple's part. And I think it's the same way with just removing Touch ID from some things and saying, well, here's Face ID. We know you'll love it. So thankfully, I guess most people do. But if they hadn't, that would be an interesting scenario if people have rejected Face ID because they want Touch ID. But that's Apple. They don't have to take chances.
No, and another thing that your comments bring to mind is right now the debate that's going on with the MacBooks. The Mac laptops. We have the MacBook Pro, we have the MacBook, and now we have the MacBook Air that's been refreshed and beefed up. And there are people saying, within a few dollars of each other, you can almost pick any of these, and you're going to be spending the same money, but you get different feature sets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a little bit new for Apple, because Apple has always sort of locked in and said, okay, we're going to choose to give you just one or two, maybe three options, but there's going to be pretty clear delineation between those options. And right now it seems to be a little blurred, and Apple seems to be drawing a lot of heat for that. I don't understand why, because it just seemed like you're giving a lot of people choices and keeping the price point about the same. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I was one of those people, and obviously my crystal ball was very wrong on what I thought we would see Apple introduce a couple of weeks ago, because I thought the MacBook Air was, and of course it's just a matter of what you want to call it, I guess, but I thought that the MacBook Air title would be dropped and there'd just be the MacBook Pro and the MacBook. But like you say, we still have three. I can see why some people would find that confusing. I mean, having a lot of choices is good, but I guess it'll be interesting to see what Apple does with the MacBook moniker itself. Will that continue, or will it eventually just be the Air and the Pro as far as Mac laptops go? But I mean, you do have three, then make it even more confusing. Apple is sort of pushing the iPad Pro as a laptop replacement. So they've got a whole lot of portables out there that you can choose from. And even people like you and I know what to look for that works best for us. But I mean, if you were new to the Apple system, you might think, I have no idea which one of these I need.
Yeah, well, and you're right. I mean, it's tough for us to step back into the non-heavy duty user mode and try to think about it, because you and I want to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 apps that open. We want to have a 27-inch monitor or two, with all the windows open, and that's just the way we have evolved our working style. But a lot of people don't need that, and even the ones that maybe could benefit from it, they've learned to work a little bit different way. So I'm not sure what that says about them or us, but there it is.
Well, since I'm sort of along the same lines, since I was talking about my crystal ball being wrong, my biggest surprise was that we didn't get any speed bumped iMacs. I was just sure that they'd at least be speed bumped, and maybe more, since this is the 20th anniversary of the iMac. But, unless something rolls out pretty soon, I guess we're not going to see an all-in-one update until spring or later of 2019. And that really surprised me, because I'm a big iMac fan. I love my iMac. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to you on one now, and I agree with you. Is that your primary production machine, Dennis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like I say. I mean, I don't travel nearly as much as I used to. I mean, as you remember, people who have been in the Apple world for a long time. There was this trade show after trade show, and I was traveling constantly. And of course, back then I had to have a Mac laptop. I mean, there was no iPad Pro, even if I'd wanted to use one. But these days there are so few tech conferences. I don't travel like I used to, which that's not necessarily a complaint. Being a little older with grandkids and everything, I'm sort of happy to be at home. But working on my iMac is what I like to do, and I hope the point comes maybe with iOS 13 and everything, that there will be a few more features in iOS where I can work on my iMac. Then if I do need to take a trip, just carry my iPad Pro with me and work on that, then come home and work on my iMac again. That'd be the perfect scenario for me, well, except the one I've imagined in my head for the ultimate Apple product. So, in a perfect world. So,
what is the ultimate Apple product in a perfect world?
This is just for dentists. I mean, it might not be for everybody, but I want something about the size of this 13-inch iMac, but that has features on it, whether it's a combination of iOS and Mac OS, the best features of both, where I can do all my productivity stuff on it when I need to. But in my scenario, then I have an Apple monitor with a slot in it that I can plug my Apple Pad, I guess we'll call it that. I'll plug it in and it immediately appears on my big screen, and I can type or use it like a big screen iMac. And then when I'm through and just want to go watch TV, just want to use it as a second screen to, see who that actor is, take it out. The screen goes black. I go use it like an iPad or a tablet or a Mac laptop. And when I'm ready to do a lot of productivity work, need a big screen, I slip it back into the monitor and it turns into a giant computer. One device.
Does that device have to have a touch screen, Dennis? Or is that important to you?
I'm one of those people that I know that Apple says that, Macs don't need touch screens and iPads don't need mice. I don't particularly need touch on a big screen. It wouldn't bother me if Apple made it an option. The way I've always looked at it was, well, if you got touch screen, you can use it if you want to, but you don't have to use it. So I guess under my scenario, the little device itself, the Apple Pad, would have a touch screen, but not necessarily the monitor that it plugs into. But if the big monitor had touch, I'd be okay. I don't know if I'd use it, but some people, I guess, would.
Okay, we may be a couple generations away from that, but I can see it happening. I mean, we're almost part of the way there, because right now the new iPads with the USB-C make it real easy to plug into a USB-C monitor. So we don't have the Mac OS on that device. And I guess if you swing it around, you could say the same thing about a MacBook Air, that you can plug a MacBook Air into a big monitor. Mm-hmm. But it's not quite the iOS machine or the iOS version of that machine. So we're inching closer. We're inching closer.
Well, say my perfect device, you plug it in, then you could take it out and use it just as a tablet, or you could snap your keyboard folio on it. Then you could still use it as a little laptop if you needed to, but come in, just slip it back into your big screen to use it when you're at your desktop wanting to, do Final Cut Pro or have 10 apps open or whatever you need to do. So if Tim's listening, if you'll make this for Dennis, he'll really be happy.
Yeah, Tim, if you're listening, I know where there's a great beta tester.
Yes, I'm in.
So at the end of the day, is this an upgrade to an iPad that you would recommend?
Well, if you've got a 12.9-inch one and it's working just fine for you, they're not inexpensive. So, I'm not sure there's a big need for that. If you have an older iPad, before 2017, it's a big upgrade. And if I understand it correctly, if you're an artist and you really, really want the new Apple Pencil, I think you'd have to get a new iPad Pro. If I understand it correctly, and I haven't personally tested this, I don't think the second generation pencil will work with anything but the 2018 iPad Pro. So I would say look at your needs. If you're perfectly happy and with what you got and everything's working fine, save yourself some money and don't upgrade. But Tim, if you're listening and you want people to upgrade to give me that Apple Pad, I'll tell them to upgrade. But if Tim's not going to give me my Apple Pad, then save yourself some money unless you really want to. I'd say the biggest reason to upgrade, if your current iPad Pro is working fine, the only reason to upgrade for a lot of people would be using the new Apple Pencil. If you're an illustrator or someone who just loves drawing and uses it to sketch and everything, it might be worth getting one just for the Apple Pencil too, which is really a good upgrade.
Okay. Good bottom line. It is interesting. Apple seems to do a real good job of every iteration, especially of the iPhone and iPad. They have one or two features that are a significant upgrade that if you want that feature, if it works for you, you need to get that. With the iPhones, it's largely been the cameras. With this new iPad, it's, I think, the Face ID and, to your point, the Apple Pencil. So if those are good enough reasons to upgrade, great. And if not, you're right. I'm quite happy with my current iPad, although the Face ID would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I say, and that is another thing. I mean, I don't know if you might have a lot of people that just say, I love Face ID enough that I'm willing to spend the money. So again, that's the other, I guess, one of those two features. If you really love Face ID and you think it's worth spending the money for it, then go for it. And if you just gotta work with the new Apple Pencil too, which, by the way, has a flat side, so it doesn't roll around as much as the old one, which I really like. And also it connects to the iPad Pro, and so you can charge it, and it will actually hang on to it. To me, one of the worst designs Apple ever had was the original Apple Pencil, which you plugged into the bottom of your iPad, and it's just sticking out, which looks so awkward. And then if you weren't careful, if you hit it, it's going to break and leave your lightning port blocked up. So I was sure happy to see that sort of change, because I don't know. I just, even when it first came out, I thought that's just doesn't look like a good idea to me.
Yeah, that was, once in a while Apple makes what I mean. I'm not Johnny Ive, okay, but once in a while there just does seem to be a faux pas that I can't decide if they just ran out of time or they intended to do something different in a fairly short time and they didn't. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not an Apple Pencil person, but just that idea, it's like, okay, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to just take my iPad and my Apple Pencil and just sit it away from everything for a little while to charge, because I don't want to take any chances on breaking off that tip in the lightning port. That would not be good.
I don't know. I guess I can see him sitting around. Hey, Johnny, how are we supposed to charge this pencil? Oh, man, I forgot about that. We plug it into the lightning ports. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that I don't think they were going to make that mistake again.
No. I'm sure they had their reasoning for doing it. It just didn't seem like a good idea to me. And looking back, I still don't think it was a good idea. But the new one is much more elegant.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Really appreciate it, because I've had a little trouble finding people that did the upgrade the very first day, or put in the pre-orders for this. I don't know why, unless they're in my boat and can't figure out which one they want. So I know, obviously, Apple World Today is where they can find you and see all of your writings and everything. Are you on any social media at this point, Dennis?
You can find out, we have, and Steve does most of our social media stuff, but we're on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all those things. But I think you can find all those links. But one thing that does confuse people, if you want to come and look at Apple World Today, it's Apple World Today. Most people, if I tell them that, they try to find appleworldtoday.com, but it's a little bit funky. It's Apple World. It's appleworld.today. So
perfect. Hey, it's great to see you. We can't let this much time go by again.
It's always fun.
Yeah, and somehow at least one grandkid snuck in there, which is just crazy. So we will do it more often.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. That's a quick first look at the new iPad, the first week with. I'm sure there'll be more to say about it as we go along. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Mac Voices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple Tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep Mac Voices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.